Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Okay, so I've invited both of your accounts now. Please let it work. Ah, thank
Yeah,
God.
good,
Instagram.
good, good, good.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir,
so
for joining us tonight.
very easy, very easy. Very,
So, well, this is right on time. It's just 2 minutes after 7, so we are still on time. So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Instagram Live. I'm really excited about this conversation we're having today because it is not every day, you know,
Mhm.
that we have that we get to speak with someone whose work you followed and admired for years. And I mean that quite literally because I met Professor Said Aderinto many years ago while I was a graduate assistant at the University of Lagos. And I used to attend his week-long seminars and conferences under the Lagos Studies Association.
Yes,
And those times were truly unforgettable. He's not just a professor, he's a
thank
historian. He has a deep passion for culture
you.
and for telling stories. And I remember during all these gatherings that, he would come in with his Agbada, Ankara, his native wear. This is conferences that we had people coming from all over the world. I met people from the United States, from Kenya, from Europe, and he would proudly show up dressed in his Yoruba attire. And this really left an impression on me because cultural pride doesn't have to be, separate from intellectual work. So it's a true honor to be having this conversation with you today, sir. And I would love to introduce you formally, but I would no one can do that better than you. So please,
Uh,
you have the floor. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and, a brief background for those who may not yet know you or your work.
thank first and foremost, thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor. I've always been looking for opportunities to talk to a bigger and wider audience across different platforms. And I know that different platforms they're different and they bring different audiences. And those different audiences helps me to, of course, expand the coast of my intellectual terrain, which is really very important for me. So, basic information. I was born and raised in Ibadan, studied at the University of Ibadan for my bachelor.
Okay.
Then I've lived in the US for 20 years. I came here in 2005 to study at the University of Texas, where I did my master's and PhD, and then left University of Texas 15 years ago. So I've had a PhD for 15 years now, and then
Wow.
studied. So then moved to North Carolina, where I started my career. I was there for 12 years, became a full professor over there, then came to Florida International University. That was 3 years ago. So, and of course, over the years, I did a lot of projects, books, as one could expect, and of course, other professional development activities. Right? So
Yeah.
thank you for mentioning that. About 10 years ago, some of my colleagues and I decided to change some things about the Nigerian education system. So we created the Lagos Studies Association,
Association. Yeah.
and that we organize the biggest academic conference in Nigeria right now.
Mm.
255 panels. The last one
Wow.
in June was 255 panels, and it's the most international conference you would ever attend in Nigeria. It's huge,
I
but
can attest to that.
yeah, the time you were attending, it was still very huge, but now it's a different ballgame entirely.
Oh,
255,
wow.
more than 1,000 presenters, and so that's some element of it. And then, of course, like I said, I've written a lot of books, and then 6 years ago, I started a new project on Fuji,
Mm.
Fuji music, and so it was meant to be a book. I'm talking about when I started in December. Another thing is that it was also meant to be what we call our second book as scholars. So what happens is that when you get your PhD,
Yeah.
your doctoral thesis is your first book because that's what you revise in most cases to a book.
True.
Then you're supposed to have another book, like a second thing you're going to be working on after the first one. So when I received my PhD at the University of Texas at Austin exactly 15 years ago, Fuji was meant to be my second book because my first book is on the history of prostitution, and
Hmm.
I published a book on the history of prostitution in Nigeria. So, but then, Fuji is not. People look at Fuji as music, but in reality,
Hmm.
is a culture. If
Hmm.
you really want to understand what it means, it's a culture that is derived from Yoruba culture and
Hmm.
also created and evolved its own.
Hmm.
So, and so what then happened essentially is that as at that time, 15 years ago, I was still very young, young in age, young in experience. I was just a young PhD. I was 31 or so at that time. So
Yeah.
I didn't have the intellectual capacity to handle the enormous nature of work that is required of a project like Fuji. Because to understand Fuji very well, you're
Hmm.
not studying it historically, you're studying it culturally, you're studying it sociologically, you're studying all elements of studying that is required to bring this thing. So after that time that I did so many other books, before then, I now went to then I decided, okay, now what's going to happen. Let me do a book. As I was working on this project, I was taking pictures, I was writing on Facebook, I was sharing my pictures, what we call
Yeah.
ethnography. So for each of the
Yeah.
interviews I did, I would write pictures, write stories about it, and share pictures. It
Hmm.
became clear to me that I would actually need to do more than just writing on Facebook.
Writing
That
a book. Yeah.
it will be in my best interest to actually make a documentary.
Documentary. Yeah.
So that's so
So
the
that was what like led you to doing the Fuji documentary.
so
That was
that's
what inspired you.
inspired. So the inspiration it started first from book, and
Mm-hmm.
of course the book is going to come out hopefully next year. So I'm still the book is still exists, but but there's going to be multiple episodes. And
Yeah.
thankfully for me, when I started the documentary 4 years ago, right? So I released the first episode. Along the line, thankfully I changed job, and got better salary. And thankfully I won the Dan David Prize, which is the largest history prize in the world. That was 2 years
Wow.
ago. So the implication is that the project, at least right now, would have enough funding to take care of it for the rest of my career.
Wow, that's interesting. So especially what you said about Fuji being a culture that is derived from Yoruba culture, that is
Mhm.
so interesting to hear. And another thing I noticed is that the depth of the production quality, and it's so amazing that you were able to do this, just on your own at first, and then you were able to gather an audience. And how long did it take you to research, film, and edit the project? And what was the most surprising thing you learned while working on the documentary?
Thank you so much. If you think the first episode is great, and I'm speaking with all sense of humility, you need
Yeah.
to you need to wait for the second episode on women.
Hmm.
It's a different ball game entirely.
Oh, well, if it's about women, I'm always ready
You,
to listen.
it's women in Fuji, women as wives,
Hmm.
as lovers, as fans,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
content creators, women, the multifaceted role that
Hmm.
women play in Fuji culture. You need to wait for the second episode if you think whatever you think about the first episode. So
Hmm.
the way it goes is that to produce a good documentary, you have to be a good researcher. One of
Hmm.
the problems that most people have about documentaries is that what they see is audio visuals. So you
Yeah.
see a couple of people, once they have a camera, they think they can make a documentary. Yes,
True.
you can make a documentary with a camera. In fact, without a camera, you cannot make a documentary. But what makes a good documentary is research, is cultural competence, is the nuances. There's difference between the narrative and the heart. They are not
Hmm.
the same thing, but they are complementary. So
Yeah.
when you see young people or even older people make documentary, what they want you to learn is the fact. Fact alone does not make a great documentary.
Yeah.
The heart, the sound design, the nuances. Let me give you an example. A professor of Yoruba at University of Florida is making a user manual for this documentary for the first episode.
Oh, wow.
Because he's making a user because he felt that these nuances are just too much that
There
you
are
would
so
need a
many
manual.
complexities, so many layers.
There are so
It's
many
not just a straightforward thing. There are
it's
so many, and it's the thing with culture. When you're doing culture, right? It's like you
Mhm.
said, it's not, it's a different ways of life. It's like
Yes.
you said, there's the, the power that women have to play in it, the power that religion has to play in it. And these are some of the elements I saw while watching the documentary as well. So please go on, sir. One other question I want to ask is, before we go into the questions about the main Fuji evolution and everything, is how would you say, um for the people that are just coming to know you, how can they get access to this documentary? Or we can keep it to the end of the video, but I just want, because some people are already asking in the comments that where can they see the first episode before we even go ahead.
Oh, that's a good question. I'll be very short and brief about it. So, what happened essentially is that the first episode is on Barrister, the man who created Fuji, and his kids are fighting one another. And my project, as you can expect, is being used as a proxy for this fight. There's a big, huge family.
Mhm.
Kids have troubles, so it has nothing to do with my project. It has a lot to
Okay.
do with their family. And another thing I'm also going to talk about is about copyright and about fair use.
Yes,
Well, the
yes.
project is 100% copyright,
Hmm.
100% fair use copyright. It's academic, it's pure research, and there's
Yeah.
nothing to be about it. But I have the power to produce, but unfortunately, there is also power to stop it from reaching the wider audience. So,
Hmm.
so we are fighting now to make sure that it can go back on YouTube. It was on YouTube for like the first time 2 weeks ago, and then they
Yeah.
brought it down. The second time again, they brought it down, and then we are fighting to make sure it can go back on YouTube. The
Yeah.
Fuji, the Fuji documentary is a collective Yoruba achievement.
Hmm.
Fuji is one of the greatest Yoruba achievements, and Barrister is not just a family man that belongs to the family of Barrister. Barrister is a
It belongs to
but
all of us.
it belongs to all of us. And then what then happen is that another thing you need to understand is that I am building the competence for younger people to do documentaries.
Hmm.
And my procedures and approach are not only ethically sound, but they're
Hmm.
also meant to encourage other people to replicate my success. My
Hmm.
success is useless if people coming after me or my contemporaries or older people cannot do what I'm doing. So the copyright element of it is a must that I have to fight out.
And it
Fighting,
has to be solved.
fighting out is simple. Barista's music and Fuji music is used on all social platforms for nonsense, for rubbish, for
Hmm.
entertainment. But
Hmm.
somebody took it and used it to produce knowledge, and then you
Hmm.
come out, you don't want the public to enjoy it. How
Hmm.
how stupid is that? Fantastically stupid. The good news is that most family members are in support. But in any family, it only takes one person to reign a family. You
That's
know,
true.
one person is enough. So the problem essentially is that we're still working to make sure it can go back to YouTube. But anyone that wants to see it, I can send you the flash drive. Send them. They can send me a DM. I'll send you Google
Yeah.
Drive. You can watch it. So send me a DM on my Instagram. You can download it. I produced the documentary for the public.
Yeah.
I, so after producing the documentary, I was approached by at least 4 or 5 streaming platforms asking me to send it to them.
Hmm.
Academics don't work that way. It's my research. So the way it works is that you get money to do research.
Yeah.
And the Fuji documentary is part of my own evaluation as a professor.
Yeah.
So instead of writing a book, I basically wrote a book and also make a documentary.
Like a
So
video
what?
journal. Yeah.
Thank you. So what that? Thank you. Like video journal. So what that basically means is that it's actually an academic work of a university professor and part of my responsibility. So in a nutshell, we're going to try to make sure it goes back on YouTube. Anyone that wants it can just DM me, and of course you can also clip it on your page if it's not going to be any issue for you, and people can download it. It's an open material. It's very easy. So
Guys, don't
mhm,
forget, follow Fuji Documentary. For some reason, Professor wasn't able to join on the official account, but
mhm.
the account is Fuji Documentary. Send him a DM if you want access to it. Like
Yes,
he said, it's currently going under some revisions to go back on YouTube because of some copyright issues, but that shouldn't be so. Nigerians now, we are trying to do something good, and you people are trying to stop it. But that's my problem with Nigerians. But moving on, sir, let's talk about Barrister Sikiru Ayinde. Why do you think he's such a pivotal figure in Nigerian music history? And many people know his music, but they don't know his story. And what parts of his life do you think that the public doesn't know about?
A lot of parts.
Hmm.
Parts, so many parts. People only know music. Even when
Hmm.
people know other things, they cannot connect other things.
Hmm.
So, and this is not unique to him. Most of the public figures, you only get to know the most dominant part, which is what they are selling, or which is their public personality. So
Yeah.
there's, and I'm happy that you saw the documentary. Even many people who have followed Barrister from childhood, much older than me, even his own family members couldn't believe some of the revelations of the documentary. So
Hmm.
what this tells us is that it's not enough for us to tell our stories. What's more
Hmm.
important is for us to do it rigorously. Stories are very important, and I would always encourage people to tell stories. You see, storytelling is the heart of our existence. And every time we tell stories, we are building on existing stories, right? But if we don't tell stories, we're gonna be dead. That
Hmm.
is our Yoruba, at the center of Yoruba identity is storytelling.
Yeah.
So the point in emphasis is that what people don't know about Barrister is a lot, but some people know a lot of things about him. But how do you put all these things together? How do you connect these strands together? How do you intellectualize this
Hmm.
term? You see, it's not enough for you to listen to music for entertainment. It's not
Hmm.
enough for you to listen to music for therapeutic purposes. It's not enough for you to listen to music as sense or as source of cultural pride.
Yeah.
It's not enough for you to listen to music as a form of nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's not enough for you to listen to music as a way of remembering the past.
Yeah.
Music is also an intellectual domain. So
Hmm.
what then happens with the intellectual domain is that the cultural element, the nostalgic element, the pedagogical element, the entertainment element,
Elements.
all these elements can be brought together creatively to build a narrative that elevates the status of a particular genre like Fuji. You need to
Wow.
you need to see what people have been saying about this documentary, and I'm terrified.
Hmm.
The comments, the reviews are terrifying. You see, how do you make a documentary and people are praying for you? I, I've never, honestly, I've written many books. Nobody has ever emailed me. Nobody has ever emailed me to say, thank you, God bless you for writing that book.
Hmm. I
The
think
reason,
that's one thing
Mhm,
we're lacking in our storytelling today. Is most things online are short-lived. People just want to be sensational, put
mhm.
the trending thing out there, and just that's the end. The depth of the research, the actual nuances connected to these
Yeah.
stories. No one is patient enough to dive deep, and I know that's something I try to do with my platform. But I know even me, I'm just barely scratching the surface, and which is why I like to say my platform is just like an avenue because there are people like you who are doing the real hard work behind the scenes of uncovering these things. And it's like you said, all the elements of the music, the entertainment. What do you think Barista's goals were for Fuji? Like, do you think what was his goal exactly? Was it entertainment, or was it all these pedagogies combined together? And what do you think that goal was achieved?
Yeah, he achieved it. His goal was not only to create, but to set the standard.
Hmm.
So see, the 1970s was a major period in Nigerian creative life. Till today, we've not reached that period again
Hmm.
because there was Hoi boom, and Hoi boom was fueling hearts at the most unprecedented level. The 1970s remained the best decade of Yoruba creativity till today. That decade has not come, it's not back.
It's not
And
bad. We've not had it.
everything. Think about local sound. Think about indigenous sounds that were just in local communities. Think about Festa. Think about how Juju became really very global. Just think about it. So Fuji was emerging at
Hmm.
a decade that is well respected for a massive explosion of Yoruba cultural heart and identity. Barrister not only creates Fuji, he laid the terms and condition for playing it. And the terms and condition is synchronization of sound. See,
Hmm.
So if the whole see in the 1970s, most of the indigenous, so-called indigenous sound are clearly audible. You know exactly what this sound is. So today, if they're
Very
playing
distinct.
today, if they're playing some Fuji sound, you will ask yourself, is that Fuji?
Mm.
Is that because of the amount of synchronization
Yeah.
of so Barrister created Fuji in the 1970s. And after creating it, he laid the structure for playing it. He laid the structure in terms of compositional technique. He laid the structure in terms of the sound, and he
Mm-hmm.
laid the structure in terms of the public persona.
Mm.
Everything that all the Fuji artists are doing today, he was the first to do it. He was the
Mm.
first to perform abroad in 1978 in London. He was the first to bring Fuji to the United States in 1986. He was the first to play at Walmart, a big musical festival. So he was the first to do all these things. And that is what is characteristics of a pioneer. A
Mm.
pioneer basically laid the structure. And of course, everyone picks it, right? And makes it into their own. So that today, sometimes what we consider to be Fuji sound, some people will tell you this is not Fuji, but the artist will say it's Fuji. If you create a genre that everyone would prefer to associate with, that
Mm.
is more than art. That is
Mm.
that is a big political economic achievement
Mm.
because you could have said what I'm playing is not Fuji. It's in your best interest to say,
It
and of
is
course,
Fuji.
he didn't do all this without creating evidence. I mean, I think in one of his albums, it defined Fuji disco. Who can tell me the full meaning of Fuji sound? And it
Please
was
comment, guys, if you know
and
what he's talking about.
so and then it defined what Fuji is about. It conceptualized what Fuji is. And that conceptualization is very powerful.
Yeah. So, wow, honestly, there's a lot going on here. There is the fact that, this man sounds like a musical genius because he
Mhm.
clearly is. Creating Fuji, a true musical genre for Yoruba people, is a huge feat. And there's just this question on my mind because, you said the 1970s was a time of a boom and, different sounds existed until Fuji came up. And, this decade sounds very musically rich. What do you think Nigeria's music scene was like? What were people listening to before Fuji? What's inspired? What were the Yoruba oral traditions, the storytelling that, had a role to play in the development of Fuji?
Everything. Musical traditions cannot exist or emerge outside of the frames of existing structures.
Hmm.
So before the 1960s, we have some cosmopolitan sound like Sakara, which was a huge thing in Lagos, La Akpala, which some parts, is a lot of parts. But what happened is that the Yoruba people are also specific in their musical traditions. So basically, most of each ethnic group has their own musical traditions. The Egbado musical tradition is different from the Ibadan musical tradition.
Hmm.
One is different from Ekiti. Ekiti is different from Ondo. Every local community across southwestern Nigeria have their own unique musical tradition, otherwise called native sound. This sound
Hmm.
not travel outside their immediate local communities. And sometimes it's just a town sound. Sometimes it's just within an ethnicity. What happened in the 1970s is that because of the enormous wealth coming from oil, the so
Hmm.
the so-called native sound became cosmopolitan sound. What does it mean for a sound to be cosmopolitan? One, for it to be recorded. Once you have a studio recording of a sound, it becomes a game of soundscape, massification of sound. It means that the sound is traveling away from its local enclave in Egbado, local enclave in Ekiti, local enclave in Ondo, and now being played outside of Ondo, not in private parties, but blasting out of a big speaker in a public street in Lagos. In the
Hmm.
so so the 1970s was when many of our local sound. Did you know that if those sounds were not recorded in the 1970s, nobody will know how they sound today? I did.
Hmm.
Huge, huge credit to promoters, cultural activists, cultural promoters like Tumbo Ladapo, Larry Adepoju. All these were not only poets, they also have
Yeah.
record labels that produce some of this sound. Some sounds like if I tell you the genre, you'll be shocked. I can assure you, honestly speaking, you've not heard. So even me, 5 years ago, I was hearing some sound, some
Hmm.
genre, but unfortunately, in the 1980s, Nigeria slipped back, and economic recession, and we got messed up, right? And now that massive cultural explosion has practically died down. But thankfully, in the 1970s, some musical traditions that has disappeared today, the only way to recover them are through the sounds that were recorded during the 1970s. So, in a nutshell, this is it. Fuji became a pan-Yoruba sound. That's what happened.
Hmm.
So, in other words, you're not just playing, and today is the most pan-Yoruba. What it means to be pan-Yoruba means that one, the style of music appeals to the ears of many people. Two, the
Yeah.
composition technique. Fuji is sung in Oyo Yoruba, and Oyo Yoruba is Pan Yoruba.
Yes, the
So
cosmopolitan one.
it's cosmopolitan one because the way, and of course because the heartbeat of it is Lagos.
Yeah.
Barrister was born and raised in Lagos, the biggest super Kollington, grew up, lived long
Mushi.
in Lagos, and
Repping Mushi
yeah,
girl on this is.
who representing. So that way, because of the cosmopolitan nature of those sounds, it became very easy for Fuji to have a kind of a pan-Yoruba identity, as
Hmm.
opposed to other genre that did not travel outside of their local enclave. Sometimes the sound could travel out of the enclave, but to have people to play it is another thing entirely. So who is
Hmm.
playing like Elemure, for example? Who is playing all this local sound in Lagos? Very, very few. We know Elemure's sound because it was recorded in the 70s and the 60s, and we know it on YouTube, thankfully YouTube. But unfortunately today, most few people are playing these sounds today. So to answer your
Hmm.
question, Fuji emerged as a cosmopolitan sound.
Yeah.
Not only because it emerged in Lagos, the epicenter of Nigerian economic life, but also because the creators were singing in Oyo Yoruba. And
Hmm.
because the sound, right from those days, was not localized. The
Hmm.
sound was not localized. The sound was not localized. That way, because it was not localized, you cannot attach Fuji to any specific Yoruba sub-ethnicity.
Hmm. Well, I love that. I love the fact that the idea that it's collectively owned by, different Yoruba subgroups. And there was something you said about, how Fuji, some people that are not even doing Fuji attach attach the Fuji name to their music. And
Yes.
that's so interesting to me because how would you think Fuji has evolved since Barista's time? What influence do you see Fuji, apart from, in his time? I'm sure all the musicians then must have been envying him, trying to copy him and be like him, attaching the Fuji sound to their own sound as well. But also looking at the future as well, what influence do you see this Fuji having on modern genres? I mean, we're already seeing it with artists like Ashake, but there are other genres. There's hip hop, there's gospel. Like, where do you see this going in the future as well?
Fuji is in, Fuji is in virtually any sound that most Yoruba people play. Whether you are playing juju, whether you
Hmm.
are playing hip hop, whether you are playing gospel, it's percussion. Percussion defines genre.
Hmm.
Lyrical composition could define, but what defines genre is percussion. So when you hear a Fuji sound, it's Fuji. It's easy. I mean, Ashaka don't even have to tell us this is Fuji. You can hear the
Hmm.
rhythm. You can hear the rhythm.
You know,
So
that has actually never occurred to me. Sorry to interrupt. It never occurred to me that these different genres of music is basically the type of instrument being used. Like Sakara is a type of drum. All these are types of instruments. Can you delve into that a bit as well?
yeah, the lead drum. The lead drum define the genre.
Hmm.
The lead drum define the genre. So Sakara is a drum, and that is the lead drum. That is you have other percussive instrument that is doing what they call backing. like, to create the rhythm, or to feel in between the lead. As Akpala is also, it's a drum. Akpala is called a talking drum. And
Yeah.
because that is the sound that is leading. When Fuji emerged, of course, initially it was going in the Akpala way in the early 1970s. Before it emerged, it evolved. And today, Fuji lead drum. Of course, you can lead with Akpala. You can lead with Akpala. You can lead with Sakara. So
Yeah.
today, for example, Saheed Osupa still leads with Sakara. You know,
Mm.
and he had this very powerful Sakara player, Sunday Oluperi. Is this Sunday Oluperi? Who has moved out of Nigeria now? We can even talk forever about Diaspora. The third episode of Fuji Documentary is Diaspora Fuji, and I was
Mm.
was in London twice last year to shoot. I was in London. I shot of course, in the US, Chicago, New York, New Jersey. I was also in Belgium. Fuji Diaspora. That's the third episode. So, but today, most Fuji artists use Gangan or Akpala as their lead drum. And you see that in my documentary where I was talking about the conflict of drums.
Mm.
So you can't, even me, honestly speaking, when I look at the documentary again, my head is able to unpack some of the things I think I did there. Because the conflict of drums another thing you need to know, that there's nothing I did in that documentary that wasn't deliberate.
Mm.
Because the part of the drum was an attempt to rewrite the history of popular culture that does not give credit to the percussionist.
Mm.
So it's deliberate. In other words, genres are defined by percussion, and the lead percussionist deserve respect. And I know you've been following this debate over time, where a
Mm.
lot of people are angry that the lead percussionist don't get credit,
Mm.
and then nobody talks about the lead percussionist. And the section I was talking about, Anyesola, is strategic to put him deliberately at the center of the creation of a genre. That without a percussionist, there is no genre. Genres define percussion. But that's how the lead drum defines. Today, Fuji is of course every sound, but there must always be a lead. There's nothing you can do about that. There must
Mm.
be a guy that is leading. Well, now this is in Fuji. It is not in all Yoruba genres. But Fuji,
Mm.
because in the Fuji pattern, a Fuji pattern is narrative. So you
Yeah.
need a drummer to guide the narration,
Mm.
and you need a drummer to guide the narration. Most of the genre they play today, for example, the so-called Tungba genre, they are mostly about beats. They're mostly about beats,
Yeah.
percussion, heavy beats, fast tempo. Fuji is a progression. So you need
Mm.
somebody to guide you. So whether you are
Mm.
pressing, or you are narrating, or you are on a solo, you need a guide. And that is what the lead drum does. The lead drum is like a pilot. You
Yeah.
don't see It's only in Fuji that you see this kind, and maybe Fuji and few that genre, that you see this kind of technique where a drum basically has to pilot the progression of performance.
This is what one thing I've noticed in a lot of Fuji songs. It's like they give space for that drum for you to listen to the message, because it's not just singing non-stop like we do these days. It's like there's always pauses where the drummer actually goes on. We calm down, we listen, and then they come back. So I think that really ties it all together, the narrative elements. That brings it much more into perspective. And it's in the past we see people trying to attach to music, but in the present, younger Nigerian artists today love to say, "Oh, they are not Fuji because it sounds local or it sounds street." But I think this has such a massive cultural influence just one or two generations ago. What do you think is the reason for the present divide? And is there a way to reintroduce it to younger listeners in a more meaningful way?
I mean, one answer one answer I think I have for that is that, you see, sorry, you see, it's just another, sorry, I think it's just another culture of how fast can you do things.
Mm.
A bunch of kids can start doing rhymes and they get into a studio. You can have a studio in this house.
True.
You can
I
have
can
you
even
can make
record in my house. That's how it is
easily,
now.
easily. And then the political economy of reward, right? Where you have someone like Davido feeling O2, Whiskey, David, Bonner Boy,
Yeah.
and then Fuji required nuances and cultural competence.
Hmm.
Even if you're gonna play Saje Fuji, you have to be born and raised in a community that flourishes or services your imagination.
Hmm.
And then because today those kind of communities are evaporating so
True.
far. Communities of language users,
Hmm.
communities, yeah, because it's about language, it's about dexterous use of language, it's about language manipulation, it's about rhymes building, it's about worldview, it's about how do you imagine yourself, right?
Hmm.
Doesn't mean other genres don't have this kind of complication, but because language is the competence, or language is at the center of Fuji competence, you actually need to build the language. So we would always have younger people do Fuji. The challenge is going to be how long can they stay in it, and how successful can they become over.
Hmm.
It does so, and because the reason is because the genre is so well established to the point that to be very original now is going
Hmm.
to take a lot of work to be
Hmm.
original. And unfortunately, in contemporary societies, because of the get rich fast phenomenon, people don't spend enough time to actually think critically, you know, about how to build something very, very original.
Yeah.
So the food, what kind of food are we talking about? I can
I
if a Gen Z, let me give an example.
yeah.
If a Gen Z listens to solo fusion, K1 solo fusion,
Yeah.
they will listen forever. It's
Hmm.
about what type? There's no single Fuji. There's no
Hmm.
single Fuji. And Solo Makinde, if you listen to Solo Makinde, is
I
full
love K1's music.
flow,
Like
full flow. So it depends. It depends. Let's talk about Fuji guys. See the trendy sound now. Sweetie, I love you. I'm gonna get you. Love you, boy. See what's
literacy.
going on.
Yeah.
Who's mixing it up? I don't know
Hmm.
the. So
Yeah, the
there's no
ones.
single Fuji. There's no single Fuji. Different kinds of Fujis, different kinds of
Hmm.
tonality, different kind of sound. So when we say, can young people listen to Fuji? Yes. What kind of Fuji can they listen to? We know that it's easy to know the kind of Fuji they want to listen to. Fuji that is relatable. And relatable
Hmm.
Fuji has to be every sound, every ear instrument. The piano is blasting, the saxophone is blasting, and there's a kind of beat making on there. That's what they will listen to. And we have some Fuji artists, young Fuji artists who are going very Afro now, Afrobeat sound. So the point in emphasis is that we may not be able to get the kind of creativity that we used to have in the past. The reason is because, one, the cultural environment that breeds those creativity is disappearing. Local, nobody wants their children to live in Motion anymore. Nobody wants
Hmm.
local communities. And it's not just Mosul, it's not just a place where people live. Mosul is a site of creativity, it's a site
Yeah.
of imagination, it's a site of but how many people are living there? And those who are living in those places now, their site of growth is no more a genre that expect them to grow.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to everybody wants to rise and fly. And that way it does not allow them to grow organically. And Fuji is
Hmm.
very organic. You
Hmm.
yeah, you grow with the language, you grow with the composition, you grow with the imagination, you grow with the experience,
And
you grow.
I think modernization as well is ruining a lot of these things. Because growing up, we had parties on the streets. These are things that, like you say, are organic. There's a Fuji artist on the road. There's a band. Everybody's dancing
These
on the
things
street.
were
Now they are in
there
halls. They are in
and
halls.
they
They
are
are closed off.
I mean, and just absolutely right. Growing up in Ibadan, that is exactly what happened growing up in Ibadan. And these were sites of imagination, not only for you to learn, but for you to become whatever you want to become. Today, they're all in halls, they're all in secluded spaces. So, Fuji cannot die. The only
Hmm.
challenge that some of us have is now that the older generation are, aging,
Hmm.
even the older generation are not building something more and more original anymore. The reason is simple. They don't have the time because
Hmm.
there's no more albums. See, in the past, albums are the site of creativity. Albums is what helps creativity, but now they don't produce album anymore. In the past, you need to produce albums to be relevant. Albums is what serves as the basis of your relevance. The numbers you are producing, the frequency of production. Because it is when you have a new album that you'll be invited to a gig. And after producing an album in a year, you sing about it, it becomes very popular, you need to produce another one. And because there must be difference between one album and the other, you are compelled to create. You are compelled to be dexterous. You are compelled to be original. You cannot
True.
sound. You cannot sound like another artist and produce an album. Your producer
Yeah.
will not allow that. Your producer will not allow that. Your record label will not allow that. And you yourself will not allow that. Because at the center of Fuji creativity is serious competition. But unfortunately, there's no more album. They don't produce albums anymore. If you don't produce album, you cannot codify style. Because albums is what codifies styles. It is what at the center of creativity is albums. Because that's creativity that distinguishes you. And because you don't want to keep sounding the same, you are compelled to
To
be
do
inventive.
better. Yes.
Unfortunately, even the highest ranked Fuji artists today, and the worst, the worst they are now doing now, occasionally
No.
they do what they call singles. And then
Yeah.
singles, which is what you couldn't have done in the
Singles
90s.
or EPs. They just drop 3 songs. Say it's an EP.
No, you can't drop singles. You can't drop singles in the 1960s, in the 70s, 80s. Even the 2000s, you can't drop singles. So the implication is that without production of album, you cannot codify style. You cannot be compelled to be original. And without being compelled to be original, it's going to be difficult for you to move the frontier of the heart. So Pasuma is 58, K1 is 68, Said Osupa is 55. These guys are not only aging. The unfortunate thing is that we are seeing a major drop in their productivity. Why? They don't have time to think. That's just the truth. Yeah, they don't have to see. This is it. You need recess. When you are playing every day, today, I hope Thai currency is going to play 3 places today. Today.
Wow.
At the peak of Fuji's success, you only play once in the night. 8 hours.
True.
8 hours at
8
night.
hours.
Yes. Today, you see a Fuji artist playing in 3 places, 3 different places, sometimes
In
different
one
locations.
night?
In one, not be night, they'll start from 11 for 3 hours in the morning. During that time, remember, you have only one instrument that belongs to you. So you can only play in one place. It could be 8 hours. Today, they are renting instruments. From K1 to King Sunny, all of them rent instruments. What it means is that they can be in 3 places in a day. All they have to do is to leave, move to the new place, test their sound, play for 3 hours. You can't be playing in 3 places in a day. You can't be playing 5 times in a week. 4 times in a week.
I still have time to do an album.
Not just do an album, to do an album that is creative. You see, creativity was shaped by drive for wealth. Without a good album, you can't get gigs. Without gigs, you can't buy the car, you can't buy the house, you can't marry many women, you can't go to Mecca, you can't go on international trips. Today, you don't need an album to have all those things. You don't need an album. Because live performances is giving them the money that albums will not even give them. If they make an album, it's going to be pirated anyway. So who cares? So if your bottom line, if you make 500,000 today, 500,000 tomorrow, 300,000 tomorrow, 1 million, you're good. So the political economy of the art has overshadowed the creativity. The last creativity we found, I'm sorry to say, the last creativity I think we see in Fuji was in the early 2000s. Since then,
I think it's just with the internet age. I think it's just Bashimas or Olajude. So Olajuloba, everything, Jay. The internet age has made it to the point that people are not creative anymore. We don't write anymore because we have AI to do it for us. We don't do this anymore because there's always an alternative. And with the internet, the speed of the internet, you can easily get somewhere here. So I think I know that I remember this Akpala song that said, "Tí ẹ bá fẹ́ kọ́ iṣẹ́ àpàlà, kẹ́ wá kọ́ iṣẹ́ ọdún mẹ́ta." That
Bẹ́ẹ̀,
was what
bẹ́ẹ̀,
this month
bẹ́ẹ̀,
was. So, and these were the ways they used to give each other silent jabs back
bẹ́ẹ̀,
then. That if you want to learn the real Akpala, ẹ farabalẹ̀, kẹ́ wá kọ́ṣẹ́
bẹ́ẹ̀,
ọdún
bẹ́ẹ̀,
mẹ́ta, like come and learn for 3
bẹ́ẹ̀,
years before you can
bẹ́ẹ̀,
say you're an Akpala artist. Back then,
bẹ́ẹ̀,
these were things that people apprenticed for before they can now stand alone and say,
bẹ́ẹ̀,
I'm
bẹ́ẹ̀,
my own person. But now anyone can go into the studio and say, wow, I'm inspired, cough, cough. And
yeah,
they
yeah,
are
yeah.
producing EPs.
Mhm, mhm.
So I don't know, should we move into the cultural piece? I don't know how much time you have, so if I should ask more questions or just move to the last segment.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I'm with you. Go ahead.
okay. All right. So now I want to talk more about your work, behind the scenes. And I have three questions. The first one is, you mentioned you were in London last year. Where did you shoot most of the first episode, and why did you pick those places?
So when you look at my frame, you have to see more than the narratives.
Mm,
So that's one of my creative preferences. I'm not see, it's not just about narratives. The background has to tell stories. It has to be fine. It has to be clean. It has to be artistic sophisticated. So when you look at the first episode, I was shooting in sites and locations that are tied to intellectualism, tied to Fuji, tied to so many things. I don't sit people down and just shoot them. No. The
mm,
location has to enhance the picture. One, the location has to tell stories. For example, in one of the shots, Pele Tajuddin is one of the band members of Barrister. I shot him inside the University of Ibadan in
mm,
Institute of Studies, and the background was a drum. So
mm,
that is a theme that's related to the documentary. Another background, Aderinto, I was shooting it with a drum. Sometimes in libraries, sometimes in so for example, the lead narrator of the documentary, his name is Dadayo. I filmed him at the library of the region of Nigerian Tribune.
mm,
That is the biggest surviving old newspaper library in Nigeria.
mm,
So yeah, it's a Tribune Library is the oldest surviving newspaper library in the whole of Nigeria. The Tribune was established, I think, in 1949.
is
So
this also at Ibadan?
it's also at Ibadan. And so museum, I was shooting at University of Lagos Museum. I used, so this is another thing I did. I have a lot of network, a lot of resources, a lot of people.
Mm,
And that's another thing I like to talk about. It's not enough for me to make this documentary. I'm also interested in mentoring people on how to
mm,
do it. When you look at the documentary, what you see is, oh, it's a lot of money. But
yeah.
money is not enough.
Mm,
No, it's not. See, money is only a tool. Humans are the most important factor in any achievement you want to make. I'm not
mm,
underestimating money. My equipment are expensive. I have four. I have
mm,
four full equipment, two in Nigeria and two in the United States. Collectively, it's about $30,000. So
mm,
I use Mark 4, and you can look at the picture quality.
mm.
It's something you would watch on
Yeah,
Netflix.
it was very clear.
You could easily pay for it on Netflix. But what I want to say is that money is not enough. Network is enough. People are enough. Relationships are enough. I'm shooting in places that you would never be able to get access to.
Mm,
So while the equipment is important, equipment are only machines. The human creative element are far more important than the machines. And that is why the difference, because I'm cosmopolitan. I've lived in
mm,
the US 20 years. I've watched so many documentaries. I've been pissed off by so many documentaries.
mm.
So in making my own, I'm more concerned about how do I use my own documentary to address the things that makes me angry about other documentary. So the
Things
filming of
like what?
things like talking too much.
Mm,
So you see my episode, how many people spoke for, for example, nobody in that first episode spoke for more than 20 seconds.
I noticed that there
Yeah,
was lots of movement,
yeah,
and yeah.
it's crowdsourcing. That's my approach. My approach is simple. So the model is this. If I want to talk to you, I can get five of you who can tell this same story instead
Mm,
of talking to you alone. And what I do is I ask you the same question. You answer. The five of you answer the same. I guide you in the narrative. Once you tell me the narrative, I have five data, and then I cut you. So it appears as if you are together. It appears as if it was scripted.
Yeah.
Some parts of the documentary are scripted, clearly. You know what I did? I brought in 4 actors.
Mm.
4 actors. So the 3 ladies are actors. Falade is an actor. Moji Wona is an actor. Dedeke is an actor. Rockwell Ewela is an actor. I gave them script. They are reading script. So that is what you do to make sure. So people talk about there's this don't have problems with Fuji. They just want it to be presented in a form that
That
can
is.
appeal to their creative, intellectual proclivities.
Mm.
I screened this documentary in Unilag. I screened it in J. Randy Center. Gen Z sat down for 2 hours. I screened it in American campuses,
Mm.
maybe 15 American campuses. It's a 2 hour documentary. Nobody stood up. Why
Mm.
we? Yeah, you're talking about. I've screened in at least 15.
And this is the Gen Z age that we like to say they don't have
This
attention span.
my son. I have a 17-year-old and I have a 19-year-old. My 17-year-old sorry for when he saw the documentary came to hug me.
Oh.
That's the first time. So young people don't have problems with attention.
Mm.
What they have problem with is things that doesn't flow, narrative that doesn't flow. If
Mm.
you want to hook them for 4 hours, they love stories. But
Mm.
how do you tell the story is their problem?
Mm.
They don't want monotony. That's their problem. So in our
Mm.
own generation, we could sit down and let one guy lecture us for 30 hours. They can accommodate that kind of nonsense. So, so what they want, so to produce a documentary that will be artistically sophisticated, will appeal to a wider audience and generation,
Yeah.
would move the narrative.
Mm.
My approach was simple. I basically curated a lot of people. When you curate a lot of people, they speak. And once they speak, all you do is to cut whatever they are saying into a sequence. If one person is not having more than 10 seconds to talk and the narrative is growing, what it does is that it builds the quality. And because you are having different scenes, you're not just putting them behind blank walls. When people are looking at the scene, they're looking at the environment, they're looking at the picture composition, they're looking at the images. And all these images enhances the quality of the narrative because they are validating the conversation.
Mm.
So I was shooting in the library of Professor J.F. Ajayi. This is a massive library. So when we are not only listening to what the person is saying, you are also looking at the picture composition. So
True.
for me, younger generation don't have problems with stories. The
Mm.
problem they have is
The
that
presentation.
how are you telling it?
Mm.
If I could get Gen Z to watch for 2 hours without standing, without taking their phone, no, taking their phone, no,
We
then
have some of the people that were there
yeah,
testifying in the comments
yeah, yeah,
at the Polytechnic Ibadan.
yes. I mean, Dr. Ajiboye testifying to that. We stood at the Polytechnic Ibadan, and we were there. So the problem is not that the problem with problem with Gen Z don't have problems.
Mm.
The problem they have is that they can't just sit through narratives that is not growing. They can't sit through boring stories. And
Mm.
no story is boring. It's all about the way you present the
The way
story.
it's told. I mean,
Yeah.
with our oral tradition, there's a way we tell stories naturally as Yoruba
Mhm,
people. There's a lot of flair involved. There's a
mhm,
lot of music. There's a
mhm.
lot of drama. So, like, these are stories that have been passed down from generations that some I even tell my daughter right now. But were there any parts of the story that because of how complex and how large this project is, you had to drop maybe some of the parts? Is there
Yeah.
any parts that you had to drop, and why did you decide to drop those parts?
Oh, that's a very creative question. Very, very creative. We always have to drop because of time, because of length, and because of backup. You don't want it to be too long. So
Mm.
there was even because for the first episode, there's a section on elite culture,
Mm.
how baristas elite culture is friends, and because his friends were very fundamental. Because I was going to use it to be able to bring in some of his famous friends, but unfortunately, length will not allow me to do that because people say, how do you create a documentary of 2 hours? It's not just the narrative; it's the heart. Because you have to build the music, you have to build the transitions. You have to, it's like, it's not, a 2 hour documentary is not what you're watching and everybody's talking and talking. No. You still have to build the narrative, the nuances, the percussions, the drums, and this and that. So for the second episode, I'm looking at almost the same length, but less than that.
Okay.
Yes, I think eventually I will have maybe 1 hour, 40 minutes, or 1 hour, 50, 1 hour, 40 minutes.
I'm looking
Eventually,
forward to that. For those who are not here when he mentioned, the second documentary is going to be about the women in Fuji. And
yes,
I'm especially looking forward to Salawa Benny because
yes.
I
Should,
learned a lot about her growing up.
should I tell you what happened about her?
You
So,
can give us some teasers, we don't
so
mind.
it's going to be a very short one. I I have a chapter on Salawa's life in my book on
Hmm.
Fuji. Our marriage to Kollington between 1984 and 1990. Salawa's marriage to Kollington. And I have already filmed everything. I can in forecast, I've already filmed her. His son in Canada helped me get her. Very fantastic. When I was cutting the videos, I discovered that no,
Hmm.
Salawa's story is too complex, too fascinating, too beautiful to be made as an appendage of the story of Kollington Ayinla. You see,
Hmm.
documentary filmmaking is an exercise in intellectual activism. Is an exercise in moral judgment.
Hmm.
A filmmaker is not only someone who produces a video content for you to watch, learn, or enjoy. There are also some moral considerations that you have to consider when you are building art.
Definitely.
Remember, I have a full-time job, so
Like,
I'm not making this documentary because I need to survive on it. It's not. I have a job, I have salary, a very good one. So it's not, so 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 in other words, I am not driven by the market.
hmm.
I'm not driven about what you think. I'm not
Hmm.
driven about any gatekeepers. I'm not driven about whether it is going to sell. You see, when you get to a point where you create art, not for sale, but for the purpose of art, then you have won with art.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that is my story. Some people would have to create art for business. It is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
It's very fantastic. You have to have a job. You have to have a business. I do not have problem if you create art, a documentary, and sell. I actually want my mentees to be able to make documentaries and sell.
Hmm.
However, because I'm lucky to have a job that actually pays me to do this, and I have funded, all my trips are funded.
Hmm.
Yes, all my trips are funded. There's none of my trips. The last time I paid for a flight ticket out of pocket, maybe 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yes, all my London, the 2 trips I came last London, it was funded. All this Belgium trip, everywhere is funded. So the implication is that I am insulated from considerations that are heavily informed by markets.
Hmm.
I don't care about markets. I care about the heart. The implication is that I can be more considerate about the morality of what I'm doing than about the market. So I'll go back to Salawa. Salawa when she turned 65, I wrote a note about her. Her story is so fascinating to the point that she should be a subject of critical study.
Hmm.
And so 2 months ago, I told myself clearly that I'm not going to add the section on Salawa's marriage to the second episode. Even though I've already recorded it, I will make a stand-alone documentary on Salawa. That is not going to be part of the Fuji documentary.
Hmm.
And I told the son, he was very happy. My wife is my wife is so happy. She's been like, I know I know that a lot of women would like to see Salawa's documentary the way I made it for Barrister. I know so many people would like to see.
Yes, we want female representation.
Yeah. But what built Salawa? So, to cut the long, the question you asked is what fuels this long response.
Hmm.
You are not just a filmmaker; you are abiding by basic ethics.
Mm.
If you're not making a documentary for commercial purposes, you are very lucky. You're lucky
Mm.
because you don't have to care about the length. You don't have to care about representation. For example, if this documentary is for commercial purpose, some artists, if they're not there, it's not going to be successful. But I don't
Mm.
care. I don't care. So whether they're there or not.
Well, I think I like the concept of making art for the purpose of art and not because, you're just doing what you want. You can to survive. And I think that also makes it very clear that this, is not agenda driven. This is purely a work of art. There are two questions in the audience. So I think maybe we should have a look at
Okay.
them before we continue. Someone said, "Forgive me if this question has been asked. How did the documentary test your skills as an historian, and how did it push you to redefine yourself as a scholar?"
Yeah, thank you so much. I can see some of my friends there. So G Ajiboye, thanks for joining the live show. Yeah, so the documentary is an exercise in historical storytelling.
Mm.
No tales, evidence, evidence. You see, the tales about Barrister are more than the facts.
Mm.
Yes, and don't be surprised. He's a prophet. So, so people like him, everybody has something to say. So it tested my skill as a historian by first and foremost being able to sieve out what is factual from what is tale. And the reason is very important. The documentary I'm making is a fact, it's not fiction. And because it's meant to be a material not only for teaching, but for also for public education. So every element of it has to be factual. And that is the first element that helped me. That I, as a professional historian, I cannot make a documentary that is not factual.
Mm.
If I'm not sure of what happened, the narrative has to be very clear. And I have to be careful about what I include. There are so many myths about Barrister that I avoided. And not just Barrister, every episode has a lot of myths. So my job is not, sometimes I could recognize the myth, but I'm not going to validate them to say that they are factual if there's no evidence. So it doesn't, so because myths are part of storytelling. So it doesn't mean that myths don't have their own value. But I have to be very careful is not to position it as fact, given the fact that there's no evidence to it. That's the one. Number two is that I'm thinking from the end of what would my colleagues think about this
Mm.
audience. Remember, the whole idea is that I'm reducing a book to a series of documentaries. It has to pass the test of rigor associated with scholarship, rigor in narrative, in contextualization.
Yeah.
For example, in the section on Ajala, we introduced Ajala, and then I came in to contextualize Ajala.
Mm.
That is what you see in that episode is a typical academic historical narrative.
Yeah.
The documentary I will produce will be different from the one the so conventional documentary makers will produce. And the reason is simple. I'm conscious of context. I'm
Yeah.
conscious, I'm conscious of nuances.
And bias as well.
I'm
There's the
biased.
reliability, the validity, everything.
All of this. So I'm not making a documentary that will conform with established protocol.
Mm.
As a professor, my job is to break those protocols. And because I don't need any validation, does it make sense? I don't care. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to, I don't have to win a prize for this.
Hmm. It's
I
for
don't
the
have
people.
whether you invite me to a film festival or not. It does. I don't care. I don't have to be in a particular film festival to be relevant. See, with all these installations, I'm able to produce a work that aligns with some of the core ethos of historical documentary making, of academic historical documentary making. So my documentary is an academic historical documentary because it aligns with the ways academics would produce knowledge,
Hmm.
not a typical. But
Um,
the last but not
Entertainment
yeah,
documentary.
yeah, the last but not the least is it reinvented me. You see, it's about ethnography. How do you talk to people? I went to University of Illinois, and graduate students were asking me about what does it take to assemble all these people together. And I was talking to you earlier. about, yes, money is important, but money cannot be important than people. I know how to talk to people. And I was telling them, if I don't have pride as a full professor, a graduate student cannot have pride. What it means is that if I don't feel being embarrassed, if I can ask anybody for information, why would a graduate student say, "Oh, you know what? I have pride"? No, you don't have pride. You can't have pride when you are seeking knowledge. You can't have pride when you are building your career. You can't have pride when you have to talk to people. You can't have pride when you are working with people. When you want people's stories, you have to align by the way they're thinking, by their own anger. So if you want somebody to tell you a story and they don't want to tell you, it's like that is it. No, that is not, damn it. Because you are still building your career, it is their story. They have every reason not to tell you the story. It's your own primary obligation to say, you know what, I'm sorry. I am an academic. I'm sorry. I'm humble. You have to be humble. So the Fuji documentary is an exercise in humility. How do you get people to open their doors for you? How do you get people to allow you to shoot in their locations? How do you get people to talk the way you want them to talk? The documentary is directed, though. It's not, apart from the curated people, apart from the people the artists that were listening to me, the real respondents, Dayo Deyemi is 75 years old. He has 2 books on barrister. Tunde Busari is in his 50s. Wale Ademowa is in his 60s. I get them to repeat the lines. They are talking to me, and I see a narration that is fantastic. When you are doing the interview, you are looking at the heart. You're not just looking at the content, you're looking at the gesticulation. How do you get people to listen to you? You must have built a competence that takes away every pride that you think you have. When I'm doing research, Sahid is doing research. It's not Professor Sahid. And but the guy is doing research. It's not a US-based person.
That's the meaning of ethnography. For those of you that are not in academia, it's about the person, his lived experience.
So
Delving into that research of the culture.
I have the largest history prize in the world. But when I'm doing research, all those things they don't count. When I'm talking to you, I don't go around thinking, oh, you know what, I have an equivalent of the Nobel in history. I don't operate that way. I don't talk that way. I talk to you like a regular person. I persuade you. I convince you. And humility is not what you perform. Humility is what you epitomize. If you are truly humble, people would know. On some of these interviews, you see, I don't have any production manager. I do the course. I call, I beg, I persuade, I convince. Most of the people that talk to me, they don't want to talk to me. It took me 2 years to get Salawa Benin to interview.
Wow.
Yeah. So what people see is a fraction of the exercise in humility. I mean, one of my collaborators, Dr. Ajiboye, is also live. We have collaborated together. I went to his campus. The day I approached his campus, he wouldn't even believe I'm a professor. It's not 2 years ago. I shot in his department. I filmed him teaching the student. I brought him and his students to the shooting of second episode. They performed. He and the student performed in the second episode. That was just last month. He facilitated the screening of the documentary on his campus. I used his own examination of his student as part of episode 1. Yeah, his students are in episode 1 where they were performing Fuji Garbage. I just called him, Baba, Kilo Shele, can your student perform Fuji Garbage? A week before the final exam, he got his student to rehearse Fuji Garbage. And he allowed me to come to and film Fuji Garbage for his final year exam, student practical exam, Fuji Garbage. That is in episode 1. Money is not what does. Character is what does this.
I need to give him a follow as well.
Yeah, this is so this is not money. So when people look at it, oh, they are American brain people. No, this is character. This is personality. This is humility. This is friendship. So going back to the question, what this documentary has done for me is to help me to become more human. to help. I think I've always been an humble person, but it has also increased the rate of my humility as a person, because it takes humility to assemble people. It takes humility to tell them. You see, you have to sell the idea to them. As
True.
selling it to them, they have to absorb the idea.
Hmm.
They have to own the idea,
Hmm.
and they have to be respected with the owning of the idea.
Hmm.
How do you move from letting people see themselves in what you are doing and actually be part of what you are doing as part of their own experience? It's a
Hmm.
different ball game. So when you see the way people were talking in the documentary, like how much did I give them? My money. Because the actors are look, so the actors I can direct them, but because I have to, so the actors I have to curate are the narrator. So instead of me talking all the time, I don't want to talk all the time. That's part of
Yeah.
the. Once you have somebody's space all the time, it becomes very boring. So the
Yeah.
actors are helping me to increase the tonality.
Hmm.
When people talk, they're talking with tonality. They're talking different languages. They're talking different character. Nobody makes documentary the way I make it. I don't know, because the reason is because people always think that documentary is about narrative. Build 5 people, let them talk. Each statement they are uttering, the way they talk enhances the tonality and the heart. The heart
Hmm.
of a documentary is not only the images you are putting, the heart is even in the orality or also heart in it. And so, right from the beginning, I discovered that I could enhance the quality of the documentary by elevating the verbal heart component, which most people think. When you make a documentary, people don't think about the heart. You just think, oh, documentary is about, let us go and listen. No. The way you talk, the tonality, the way different people are talking, the cut, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, when you merge it together, the heart of the sound itself is pleasing to the ear. Somebody
Hmm.
speaking Yoruba, somebody speaking English, somebody speaking fast, somebody speaking slow, somebody's gesticulating, somebody's, all those things add to the heart of it. So the documentary transformed me in great ways. In fact, what I say all the time is that I've been reinvented. I
Hmm.
mean, yes, I'm a new invention. Remember, I've been able to make this kind of documentary also means that I've increased the intellectual and financial value of myself. So it doesn't mean, so when I say I'm making documentary for free, if Netflix approach me now, it's going to be millions of dollars.
Hmm.
So the Fuji documentary is a free academic documentary. I can make documentary as a paid one, but not Yama Yama documentary, not documentary about nonsense. So what it
The
means is
experience
that
alone is valuable.
I can make a commercial documentary, but right from the beginning, this is commercial. So we deal with the copyright. Anybody who's I'm interviewing, I will tell them this is a commercial project. It's gonna be Netflix. This is how much you want. I pay you. Everybody's paid. I also pay for my cast. Don't get it wrong. The people I interview, the people I curate, I pay them. The people I interview, there's always gifting. Remember, we're Yoruba. So they talk and gift eventually. So the interview, the matter, the approach of gathering data for the interview aligns with academic approach, which is straightforward, which is I interview you, I don't give you money ahead. After the interview, I can give you money, but I'm not paying you for the. That's a different situation entirely.
Hmm.
If Netflix, if a private film industry company wants me to make a documentary and it's going to be commercial, it's not a problem. So at that level, any copyright people, they can get paid for their sound. People who are interviewed, they get really paid because we're going to get paid for it because they're going to put it on Netflix anyway. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
So the documentary is not just only a reinvention in storytelling capacity. It's also that I can retire into documentary filmmaking and have a living easily. I could make millions potentially.
Yeah. So you're not just redefining yourself as an academic scholar now. This is also, going into a new territory
My
for the future.
my financial worth, what I worth, the documentary has changed radically. My, let me simplify this. Let's say that let's say that I'm not I'm not even working with a production company. Let's say this is not a production company thing. Right now, as a professor making documentary, any institution that I want to go will price me differently. Because in America, we don't have uniform salaries. We don't. Professors are paid based on their productivity. So if you want me to come and if I want to leave FIU now, my value, I don't even know what my value is now.
Mm.
Yes, even if let's say I'm not making private document, let's say I'm not making commercial document, let's say it's not Netflix. Let's say that I want to leave FIU. How many academic professors, full professors, make
Mm.
documents? How many can use cameras? How
Mm.
many- Because don't remember, I can teach it. I can teach historical documentary filmmaking. So the documentary, so in addition to the humanity, it has tested the terrain of my humanity. It makes me happy, honestly, that I'm human. Like I said, when I go on the field, I don't go as a professor, I don't go as a USB, I don't all those things that I talk to you as a human. And then that way it increases my skill of understanding people.
Yeah.
I write a book, a book of reflection on this documentary. A book
Mm.
of I can write a book of reflection on this particular documentary.
Or even on the art of, making a documentary as well.
Even on the act of
So
making.
I do have a question about this because you've now delved into how this has changed you as a scholar and as a historian. Earlier you said something about mentees. There might be people listening here. I have a lot of creatives who are on this live. What advice would you give to these younger people that want to also preserve or research, our culture, our African culture, whether Nigerian culture, whether Yoruba culture or any other type of culture? What advice do you have to give them? And, how can we keep this culture alive?
Seek knowledge first.
Hmm.
Be rigorous. Learn from technology, but don't be enslaved to technology.
Hmm.
Yes, technology makes life easy, but rigor cannot be. You can't. You can't replicate rigor. I tell people, there's no time in human history that rigor and excellence as there's no time in human history that rigor and excellence has the capacity of being rewarded incredibly than this era. Because we're in the era that people think that technology would make things easy for them. We're in the era of fast turnout. We're in the era of everything can be quick.
Sorry, sir. I thought I addressed it earlier. Sorry, Mr. Boladi, sir. You have to DM him if you want access to the documentary.
DM me, I'll give you
Fuji
access.
Documentary. That's this page. Please follow
Yeah,
that
or
page.
you can follow me on. You can just follow me, and I will send it to you. Very easy.
Yeah.
Very easy. Thanks, Sam. There's no time in human history that excellence has the capacity of being incredibly rewarded than this era. And rigor. The reason is simple. Every young person wants to be a storyteller. And because people assume that everything's on the internet,
Mm.
they think that what matters is the view on YouTube, not even on the heart. So go on YouTube, you set up documentaries. People are making documentaries like anything. Because you have the images, you have the videos that speak on it. So many. And then we now have animation. Oh, party. We have animation now. So what's the problem? If we have animation, we can tell stories with animation. I do not have problems with every technologically driven approaches to storytelling. I use all this technique. If you look at the first episode, there's animation in the first episode. Many so many pictures of baristas are AI generated.
Mm.
But I didn't use all these AI materials at the expense of the real major footage. I use typical art. In other words, we basically pay some artists, roadside artists, about four.
I saw some arts in there, the ones where people were performing.
Yes,
And, The funniest thing is when I and my husband were watching this, he took a picture of that because it was like he likes this art style. It reminds him of some of the art style we used to see back home. And that
Yes.
was something I actually noticed.
Yes. So the art. So I was still regular artists. We just give them. They don't even know. I have a mentee in Ibadan that was doing that. We just give them, go and tell them, because once they see your phone number, they start taking something else. So anyway, so that's another troubleshooting approach I use. What I'm saying is seek knowledge first. And serious knowledge requires time to build. Do I want more people to make the kind of documentaries I make? Yes. But cameras don't make documentaries alone. It is research and knowledge and cultural competence that makes documentaries.
Mm.
So today, young people are more obsessed about content creation, and they think that they can easily create content. Yes, you could easily create a 5 minute something, and it becomes what? It has 1 million views. Yes, these views can be converted into followers and following. And yes, following can be converted to opportunities and survival. If you see art as archive, as heritage, you won't want to produce something just because you want to produce.
Mm.
So my major challenge is the proliferation of materials that are not artistically, theoretically, intellectually sophisticated. They don't have to be sophisticated. They have to be intelligent. Now, what that means is that we are in the age of stories.
Mm.
See, go on YouTube. You will see documentaries. People are making documentaries every time. What it means is that it is good for them to make it. You know why? Because for you who is rigorous, you will need that metadata to build your own.
Yeah.
When you look at my documentary, what the challenge about the documentary about YouTube release is only the song. The materials are from everywhere on the internet. So we are in the era of crowdsourcing.
Mm.
What seems to be original to my own are the videos I shot. The pictures, some of the pictures are we don't even know the owner.
Mm.
So in other words, we are in the era where you can do something incredible. Let me tell you, there's nothing.
Like some people are even making a living off doing covers of
There's,
other people's
there's
stuff.
nothing you cannot do. I have apps that can improve picture qualities.
Mm.
Yeah, you see, some of the pictures you saw, that's not the original. I have apps. They're free. I have apps that can improve video qualities. So this is technology, but I'm not using this technology at the expense of rigor. They are not the same thing. So if you are a rigorous person, this era is for you. You
Mm.
know why? Because if you can do what other people cannot do,
You'll be
you
different.
will stand
You
out.
stand out. Mm.
Because everybody's making a documentary. All these kids are doing voice over some documentaries.
Like
That,
also, we are still on survival. Oh, we are content creators.
oh, and I will now go back. I will now go back to where the other part I'm going. A guy made an animation I liked. I'm just going to answer your question in a much easier one. He made an animation, a 5 minute animation about barista, and he posted it. I liked it, and I reached out to him. I said, "Who are you?" He said, "Okay, I just like to make pictures." He's based in Houston. Here. He's a Nigerian guy, Yoruba guy. He now told me that he does that like every week. He creates content, but with animation. He knows how to use AI. I said, "What if we work together? I provide you with the intellectual conversations to elevate your story. I provide you with hardcore original archival materials, and you make animation videos for me and for free. I give you what I have, you give me what I have." You need to see how happy the guy was. So this kind of collaboration can elevate the kind of art that you're doing. He said, "You know what? I can show you how to do how to make AI video." I said, "No, don't worry. The one I know already. The one I know." You see, for this documentary, the only thing I don't do in this documentary is that I don't do the editing. I have an editor in Nigeria. We work on Zoom. and I wrote about how I do this thing. I've been open about my approaches. So it's in Nigeria, I'm here, we work on Zoom. We worked for like 5 hours yesterday. I'm not going to learn editing because what I know is too much already. So the guy wanted to teach me AI. I said, I'm not going to learn AI. Let us do this. Let us do this. I will give you what you want. I will help you elevate your storytelling. I will give you context to your storytelling. I will give you original archival. He said he wants to work on Anini. I said, say no more. I commissioned my research assistant in Nigeria to get you all the archival newspaper materials on when Anini was arrested and killed in 1986-87. Everything. You can then use it to build your AI materials, and I will elevate you. Then for me, he will make AI videos for me. True or for true, we're happy. No, but collaboration could be answer. This guy is not going to be working with a professor who understands the nuances, who can help him elevate his conversation beyond just making it high. That way, he was generating. You can so the materials I'm going to be giving to him now is the original newspaper material from which he's going to be generating AI. That will increase the textuality of his AI generation. It is going to increase the storytelling capacity because it's going to be speaking to archival material.
Yeah.
That way, science is meeting facts.
Yeah.
So this is it. So for me, I don't have any problems with modern technology with documentary filmmaking. I want AI. In fact, so in this episode in the second episode, there's animation, 2 animations. Yes, because some images, we don't have pictures for them. We have 2 animations, and there's going to be a lot of AI. In the first episode, there's 1 AI. There's about 5 AI pictures and 1 moving pictures. So that is it. Secondly, is the another project I started. I call it equipment loaning system, where I loan out equipment. So I am committed to loaning my equipment to young creatives, the one I use. That way, they could be more professional in terms of the quality. Sometimes we have a lot of professional videographers, but Mark IV is not cheap. Mark IV is the camera and the lens alone is maybe 7 million. I think so. With this, the full equipment, the full one, camera equipment, light, would maybe 10 M. I think so. And I have 4 anyway. I have 4. So so I'm willing to loan out my equipment. I'm willing to provide guide. I'm willing to mentor. All this is not zero.
So someone's already asking me, will my survival mode ever end? I'm ready to mentor. I'm ready to do some rigorous work if Prof is going to take me under his wing.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm mentor. Even right now, people will send their materials to me. You'll be shocked that some people who are actually like filmmaker, documentary filmmakers who have been making documentaries. When they saw my home, it's like, wow. Talent is image composition. You see, knowing how to use a technology and the talent are not the same thing. When I started my documentary filmmaking, I was hiring videographers, people who know how to use camera. I would hire them. I was the one that would tell them the picture composition. This is how I want the camera to be. This is how and picture composition and camera angle makes the biggest difference in narration. So at the end of the day, you could have guys who know how to use cameras, who like to make films, but they may not have the talent of picture composition or camera positioning. I said, when in the second episode, what you are seeing, the stage setting, I said the stage. There's this man called Adisao CFA, who was talking about his girlfriends, Barrister's girlfriend, and how they had so many girlfriends and this and that. I set his house. The picture of his wife, so his wife died in 1984, 85. It's one of his beloved wives. So we had to take the picture and put it at the background. And he was so happy when he saw the picture, because he's always talking about the wife. Everybody knows her name is Clinical Life Wire, but everybody in the Fuji community knows this woman. And she died in the 80s. By putting the pictures, the wife's picture at the back as background, it changed the way he was talking. So how do you make people's home into how do you make
the scene?
I set my background, I don't do play background. So go and check the entire episode. I'm shooting a mosque. I wanted to shoot some drummers. I had the option of just putting them. No. We went inside mosque because the drum is Ajiwere and the drum is an Islamic. We need a location that ties with the drum.
Mm.
The old man that was talking about Ajiwere Ajisari, his name is Aderinto. There's a lot of radio at the back of his house, at the back of his the same. I said the radio, the entire equipment. So the point in emphasis is knowing how to use a camera is not enough. You have to have the talent of frame composition. And even if you have the talent, you have to know how to talk to people to let you mess with their home. Because when you're shooting in people's home, how do you determine if you want to film in their home or if you want to film in a location? How do you take people away from their home to come and shoot in a location? How do you talk to them? So this is not, you have to figure out a way to let them see the project as their own project.
Yeah.
You let them hold it.
So just to recap what you said, for those that are just joining, the question was, what advice would you give to younger people who want to preserve or research African culture? The first thing, Prof said was to seek knowledge and be rigorous.
Yeah.
The second thing he said is learn from technology, but don't be enslaved from it, because technology makes everything easier these days. We just want to put everything online and get it out there. But you actually have to put your soul into it, not just telling technology to do stuff for you. The third thing you mentioned was collaboration. People are very important. Who we are connecting to. It's not about money or paying people. It's all about bringing people, exchanging ideas, and working together. And you also talked about mentorship, as well as talents, frame composition, and lastly, people skills, because that's the most important. People bring everything together. So just for those of you who are creatives in the audience, I know there are lots of creatives following me as well, and that might be following Professor. You need to have all these things if you are thinking of going into documentary or filmmaking. I'm just going to go into the last questions now. But something came up just now while you were talking. You said Ajiwere was an Islamic drum, and it just occurred to me: did religion have a role to play in the development of Fuji music?
Absolutely. Ajiwere is an Islamic musical tradition performed during Ramadan. They still
Hmm.
perform today
Oh,
sometimes.
so is it bandiri, or what do they call that those music styles?
No,
I think I've heard.
Ajiwere Ajisari is different, and because it's a nocturnal sound
Hmm.
performed to wake people up. Now, of course, today, these things are expanded in different ways, but that is what led to Fuji. That's the origin of Fuji. But it's an Islamic tradition that is nocturnal, used predominantly during Ramadan. And of course, during the 1970s, Barrister thought, you know what? Why should we be doing this in once
Once
in
a
a
year during
once in a year,
Ramadan.
and let's make it to the commercial. Of course, some people are still performing the old tradition. So the guys playing the drum in the first episode,
Yeah.
they are Tai and Ken Donibembero. They've been doing the traditions in the 70s. They still do it. And then I was able to get them to play the drum. So to give people a sample of how the drum how it sounds, how Ajiwori sounds.
Okay, so I've taken too much of your time, sir. It's been over an hour and 30 minutes. Final question. It's up to you how long you want to go for. Um, what's one Fuji album? This is a fun one that you think everyone should listen to at least once. And lastly, for people outside Nigeria, where's a good place to start learning about Fuji?
That question of one Fuji album to listen to, that's it's like because your question is going to be for what purpose?
Hmm.
I think that would be the best because the reason is because all Fuji albums are themed heavily. And I'm talking about, some people, I know some people who are Christians who don't listen to Fuji. But you know what? Yeah, someone said family
Family
planning.
planning.
So everybody have their own preference. So they will say, okay, so there was a Persona released an album, MMM, I know a lot of Christians, people who have never listened to Fuji. MMM took them into Fuji. MMM.
Mm.
And I know some people that, Solo Makinde or Fuji Fusion took them.
Olu Makinde, I love it.
Now, the person who said you should go and listen to Family Planning, that person must be an ancestor. That because that person must be an ancestor. See,
Or lived with an ancestor.
even Bola Adisa is an ancestor too. That, you see, because this, and being an ancestor has nothing to do with age. Being an ancestor is a frame of
A
is a
frame
frame.
of mind.
Yes, these are people who are very deep. Because these are very deep albums. Uh, yeah, you must be an ancestor. So I think it's gonna be difficult to say that. Even for example, someone said barrier at 40, because for some people coming of age, a landmark age and so on. I think it's gonna be a very difficult. Even for me, one of my mentees, he said you should go and listen. So I think
If since you guys are mentioning, I'm going to mention one time by Remi Aluko. I know it's not a deep album, but it's my favorite.
but you know what Remy did to what Remy did to an entire generation in the early 2000s. That's it's so sometimes it's
I'm the generation you are talking about. I
uh
can't do without listening to that song, at
that's
least that
so
album, at least.
so you can so you can tell what it means. So that way it's just too difficult for
Mm,
anybody to say that this is the free. So I think one question is going to be, for what purpose, in what context, under what circumstances.
mm,
That's under what circumstances, what kind of division do you want? What kind of energy do you want? Do you
mm,
want energy that says nothing will happen? Or do you want
mm,
energy that puts you down? Or do you want the energy? So I think it's gonna be, do you want just the aesthetic element of it? Like, after having your coffee. For example, after having my coffee, there's some sound, that's what I want to hear. Some sound that are very good on early morning coffee. So I think it's gonna be very, very, very difficult to say in clear terms
mm.
what. Sometimes all I want is the beats. I mean, I will tell you, okay, let us do this. Let me help out. Okay. I think go and listen to Napoli like Lagos Paso.
I love that one.
Then I was in Napoli in
I'm taking notes.
yeah, I was
I've
in
not heard of MMM before. I'm taking
ah
notes.
I was in Napoli in May. In May, and I met the guy who recorded that album. I was in Napoli in May. And I record. So, I would recommend you play Napoli like Lagos, which is like very groovy, See,
Hmm.
one is saying I'm right. So you go play, but don't play it without your headphone or without some Fuji sound. Without a good speaker, you are losing 10% of it.
Mm.
You are losing 90% of it. So don't play Napoli like Lagos on earphone. Play it with a very good old speaker and make sure it is loud when your family is not, when you're not going to be disturbing your family. Like, it's not a sound you enjoy quietly.
Mm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so I mean
And for those in the diaspora as well, like how do they get started if this is something? Because you will not believe how many non-Nigerians are following my page and are deeply interested in the African culture. A lot of people in the Americas that are trying to reconnect to their roots. They come, they ask me, oh, what books should I read? What documentaries? Where do I get started from? So Fuji is just one of the aspects of how they can connect to their roots. So where would you say these people like this can get started from?
yes, so many ways they can get started from. For in my own, for example, when I shoot, I mean, I know a lot of people that will come to my set to see what I'm doing, and I travel very well. A lot. I mean, like I said, I was in London twice. Last year I was, Belgium, all this place. So one possibility is to meet up and come to my set to see my process and to see the way I do things. Of course, shooting, for example, I'm going to New York to screen, and there's the Nigerian Day in New York, and the lady that is inviting me is a community leader. I think someone like you is also a creative, she has building a community, and she's bringing me to New York to screen as part of the Nigerian Day in New York. So this kind of cultural activities bring the communities together. Another thing they
Mm.
could do is to talk to their cultural people in their community. It could be the library. It could be their local library. It could be their local community people to invite people who can. For example, there's another lady in New York who reached out to me and sent a proposal about an event they wanted to do. So there are many ways of connecting, but you cannot connect without connecting. In other words, you have to reach out to say, you know what kind of book can I read? Like I said, a professor is making a manual on the first episode because he's making the manual for people like our international brothers and sisters who don't live in Nigeria, who have never been to Nigeria. So we have, and because after watching the documentary, it was like, no, how do I make sure that people who are willing to connect to their roots understand this? Because he felt that even he himself can understand it. So we have people making manuals. So these are ways to connect. Of course, attending events like this, so you invited me. I wasn't saying, you know what, I'm a professor, I can't be on Instagram Live or this.
And I truly appreciate it, sir.
No,
Like, I didn't have to beg Prof to
no,
come
no.
to this live.
So it's part
Like,
of so it's part of the connection, different demographics. No, so different demographic, different network, different situation. And so we have all this. So for the New York event, it's going to be in first week of October. It's gonna be in first week. But please, if you stay in touch with me, I will connect. I will send more information. So it's gonna be in Nigeria House in New York, and then I'm also gonna screen at Columbia University in first week of New York. So it's gonna be three events, but 1 week or something like that. So reach out to people, let them know your itinerary. These are very, very important. I'm always very mobile, and that mobility also helps. Come to my set. You can come see my set. You can come see my approaches. Like I said, the documentary is heavy. If you want the documentary, send me an email, send me a DM. I'll send it to you to watch. Google Drive. You can download it and watch it. It's made for the public. While we are working on the trouble with the YouTube release, it's their own wahala. When they are ready, they will. So another thing about for me, another thing I would teach is creating is the most important. Dissemination. People are more concerned about how to make people see their work. Yes, people will see your work, but create first. Create first. And so for me, being a creative is the most important element of what I wanted to do. So if you think too much about how people will see it, you won't create in the first instance. So this documentary is going to have its own life on YouTube. There's nothing anybody can do about it. It's going to come. We did it. They put it down. We did it. They put it down. I'm not paying anybody a dime. See, if I throw money around for copyright, how do you expect poor, young creatives in Lagos to create? We have to create the standard. Part of the standard is that what they cannot do, I shouldn't do it. And if I want the documentary to be on you, if I don't want any YouTube issue with it, I know what to do. Do I have the money? Yes, but I'm not going to pay. It's fair use. So we have to train people on the legal element. You also have to train people on how to fight. I fought to have this documentary. K1 was not going to be there. That's your own problem. Pasuma is not going to be a problem. Today's creative cannot be patronage creatives. I told you about how I work. The fact that I'm humble doesn't mean I don't know I'm a professor when I want to activate myself. I know.
Bàbá sọ pé búrẹ́dì wà
No,
o, ẹ̀wà wà o.
very well, very well. So I know I know exactly when to act like one. I can switch. My humility is not I don't fake humility, but I know how to activate. So because it's fair use, we have to train people to understand what fair use means and to be able to create. If I pay what they wanted to politicize my work, the family is fighting. Some members of the family are fighting. Don't let anybody say you cannot create. So when I was working, they sent a copyright person after me saying that I cannot make a documentary on Barrister. I said, I'm a professor, I can do
If I
whatever.
see something like that, I would have been scared.
Yeah, English thing like this. I said no. So we also have to train I've been insisting. I'm not just creating. I have to lay the basis and the bedrock for creating. And it's training. If you are not making money out of something, you are covered by fair use. If you want to make money out of it, you can talk about copyright. I am an academic creator. So I can write on anybody. You can make documentary about anybody. Don't let anybody tell you that.
Mm.
If they want money, you have to be very careful. In Barrister's case, it was more than money. They were using my work. They're using my work to fight themselves, and they were thinking about another thing. They were thinking about the biggest carrier. In other words, they want a big filmmaker. Kelani was supposed to take a documentary about Barrister. Some kids were
Mm.
some kids were disrespecting him, right? They were talking about money. They didn't want the money he wanted to give, and they were already disrespecting him. You know what Kelani did? He said no. He stopped.
Mm.
What Kelani couldn't do is what I did because I'm
Mm.
young. Kelani is 70. So Kelani is 77, 76. He's already an older man. He doesn't need it. Me, I'm 46. So I have all the energy and I have all the madness. So for me, so they were like, oh, you can't make a documentary on Barrister. Barrister is the copyright. Who told you I'm a professor? I can do whatever I like. It's an
Mm.
academic work as long as. So the point in emphasis is that theoretical conversation about documentary making is useless if we don't teach the people the secrets. It's like when you tell people, I want you to be successful, but you didn't tell them you didn't troubleshoot for them. You didn't tell them the secrets. You didn't tell them where you're getting the money. You didn't tell them all the whatever you're doing. What you see in that documentary is only a fraction of fight.
Mm.
So I just told you that I fought. So if I'm not saying that I immortalized Barrister, if I didn't tell you that I actually fought the family,
Yeah.
like, no, it doesn't work that way. A
Mm.
lot of members of the family wanted it, but some people in the family don't want it. One, because they're using it to fight their brothers. Two,
Mm.
because the copyright people wanted money because it's money. It's a copyright. The copyright is more important about their own percentage, right? And so they wanted money. Later, some members of the family who are not in the documentary felt angry and they're unhappy. Yes, now, because one person is there, like, doesn't make sense. So within the Fuji community, some people are like, within the Fuji community, some people are like, no, why did you make a documentary and so person is not there? Your
Mm.
project can be a site of politics, and I'm happy.
Mm.
If it is a useless rubbish, nobody will fight over it. So one of the things,
True.
so it is not enough for us to encourage people to make documentaries. It's not enough to encourage creatives. No, all this mentorship. No, your mentor must tell you the secret. If your mentor is not telling you the real secret, go, it's a waste of time.
Mm.
And the troubleshooting or the real secret is what makes the difference. It's not even the camera. It's not
Mm.
even the money. If you like, give somebody money, if you don't know how to negotiate relationship, how to build relationship, is a waste of time. How to connect with people. So for me, it's not just about. I've just explained to you why the documentary shouldn't have even been made. But because I'm a professor and I have money, I can say, okay, you want to shoot me? Yeah, go and sue me. Let's go to court. You
Mm.
can't have the same conversation with a young creative who
Yeah.
is so
Who is
so
easily
so.
scared, doesn't want to step on toes,
Who
and you
doesn't
can't talk to some certain elderly people, anyways.
and then they say, okay, if you are still you don't even have the
Mm.
cameras, you don't even have the resources, and then you are
Mm.
sending a letter. A copyright person is telling somebody, a young creative, that you cannot make this, and then the young creative like, but me, I can say, okay, you want to go to court? Let's go to court. I will get 5 lawyers who are professors of law, and
Mm.
then you don't know what you're talking about. So in my own, so when I was making this documentary, the legal aspect, which is very important for people to know, was that when documentaries, they're like, oh, you cannot make the documentary. I went ahead and released it. You cannot release it. And I was waiting for them to sue me because and they did sue me. Oh, you know what? You can't be screening the documentaries. Then now, but the stage I cannot control is the
Mm.
YouTube stage
Yeah.
because YouTube is a platform. I can't control that one.
Mm.
So we released it, they yanked it off, we put it back, we petitioned. So we are still petitioning, we are still in the process of making sure it can go back. And of course, it's still going to go back. Worst case scenario, I won't listen to
Mm-hmm.
them anymore. You know what? Creation is more important than dissemination
Mm.
because it's what you create that you will disseminate. If you don't create, you cannot disseminate. So the
Mm.
YouTube element, we're still petitioning, we're still fighting it right now. It's still going to go back on YouTube. But what's more important is creation. Because once you create, you cannot disseminate what you did not create. Abby?
Mm. Mm. Okay. Wow. It's a lot to chew on, a lot to think about, a lot to swallow. But what's important here is like you're laying the groundwork for future filmmakers, for future historians who want to document our culture. And again, guys, follow Professor Aderinto. It's Fuji Documentary. This is just his personal account. But if you want to follow the Fuji Documentary page, I'm gonna put it in the comments again. And if there's any final question, please drop it. If not, we've taken so much of Prof time. It's been 2 hours.
Yes.
This one has passed lecture. Oh. Eh?
You're welcome.
This one has passed lecture. I want to say thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
The fact that you were just sending this link to us for us, as from some of your former students or researchers on your program, and I was like, this would be an interesting segment to have someone who has this much knowledge, which is essentially what my platform is about. I don't have the knowledge. I only bring the little I've researched. Just I don't even do deep research, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. Wikipedia, some articles here and there. It's
Mm,
people
mm,
in the comments that usually come to correct, say, this one is not right, this one is not
mm,
right. And I feel like at least it is something. We
mm,
can still go further. How about we bring someone who actually knows what he's talking about?
mm.
And you honored me, sir. I am eternally grateful.
You're welcome.
You have no idea how much this means to me. This is
Mm.
my first time doing this, and you are a big man. He's a big
Yeah.
man. Oh, don't think because he's on this live.
No, no, no.
This is the progenitor of the Lagos Studies Association. If you don't know what that is, please Google
Mm,
it. As a
mm,
research assistant in University of Lagos, this is something that I was a part of. Huge conference, and
mhm.
it's even huger now, according to you,
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
I've left years ago.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm your biggest fan. I'm
Yeah,
going to
thank you.
be, we are waiting for the documentary. If you want to
Yeah,
watch the Fuji documentary, we are just at episode 1. Send a DM to Prof. It's going to
yeah,
send the link to you.
yeah,
Episode 2 is coming. Episode 3 is coming. It's in the works. So,
yeah,
guys, don't dull at all, at all. If there's any final words you have, sir, let us say it. If not, good night, everybody. And thank you so much for joining the live.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.